You know, if there's one thing I really appreciate about the Hades games, it's how well the writers at Supergiant have adapted the figures of Greek mythology using modern character writing. The gods and figures of Greek mythology weren't really characters by our modern story writing standards. They were closer to the figures in fables, existing to teach a lesson, impart wisdom, or explain the world, and this, combined with the cultural drift from the sheer amount of time that they were worshipped, and the fact that their stories were often altered to fit political agendas, has left them largely inconsistent in the characterization department. This has always been the challenge of adapting mythology for a modern age, choosing which tales to keep as canon within your story and figuring out how to characterize mythological figures in a way that both makes sense and will satisfy the mythology nerds in the back who've spent the last 20 odd years side-eyeing things like Disney's Hercules and meaningfully sharpening a knife. But this is something that Supergiant has consistently managed to pull off rather well, taking the base personalities of the gods and extrapolating far deeper characters out of them that make them feel very human and engaging. You can see this in all of the gods they've adapted for their games, how they looked at each character, wrote their experiences, and asked themselves how what they went through would change them, what each experience would do to a person, and how that would reflect in who they are now and correlate to their portrayal in the myth. Look at almost any character in the games, especially in Game 2, and you can see just how much effort has been put into making them feel as human as possible. But the character that ended up sticking out the most to me, and even becoming my favourite in the entire game, was one I never expected, largely because I've never seen any adaptation truly humanise him until now.
Well, would you look at that? Another would-be suitor journeyed far and wide just to gaze upon me. Not that I blame you, and get totally rejected. Fine. Ogle if you must.
Yes, really. Narcissus is actually surprisingly deep and, to my own shock, also really good error ace representation. Sit tight, I'm about to explain what I'm on about. Trust me, I do understand the doubt you might be feeling. Narcissus is pretty much the mythological poster boy for the self-absorbed jackass who's as deep as the shallow end of an empty reflecting pool, and in all fairness, the game does introduce him to you that way. He immediately assumes you're there to court him, regifts you a random resource, and tells you to fuck off. And this is how most of your interactions will go with him for the most part for a very long time. He basically acts as every other modern interpretation of him has, and you'd be forgiven for not liking him at all since he spends most of his time assuming Mel is in love with him, not listening when she says she isn't, and not even bothering to remember her name no matter how many times she reminds him. But after taking the time to talk to him night after night, it eventually becomes clear that Narcissus isn't just some self-absorbed fuckboy with no regard for anyone around him. He's actually like this for a reason, and that reason isn't his own beauty. Well, not just that anyway.
Say what? Well, sorry, I was just... Yeah, I mean, just look at this. The chin, the turn of the cheek. Have you ever seen anything like it?
If you're familiar with the legend of Narcissus, then you know that he was the single most sought-after bachelor in Thespiae, and that he turned down absolutely everyone who ever attempted to court him. Most famous of these suitors was Echo, but in some tellings it was a young man named Amenius. In either telling they die of heartbreak, or in Amenius' case, also a sword, and the goddess Nemesis punishes Narcissus with an ironic death where he catches sight of his reflection in a nearby pool of water and, entranced by a beauty he cannot touch, dies of heartbreak or starvation from not being able to leave, again depending on the telling. Hades 2 obviously sticks to the Echo telling of the story, and Narcissus is largely unchanged at first. But what the game actually does to expand his character is deceptively simple. It explores what living like that must have been like. The thing about Narcissus is that, while he is absolutely self-obsessed, he isn't heartless. He shows care for other people, but it's always filtered through his own perspective on self-love. Unless you show up with low HP, then he just tells you to go see a doctor, you crazy person.
Whoa, what's wrong with you? Coming in here like that. You don't need me, dummy, you need a doctor or healer or something.
But what's important though is that none of this springs from nothing. Narcissus is the way he is because of his past suitors, because despite being the most desired man in Thespiae, he was also the loneliest. Although he had countless suitors in life and even more in death now, he never had a single friend. Nobody who approached him was ever interested in him as a person. They just saw how pretty he was and decided that they wanted to be with him. And that was a problem because he really didn't want to be with anyone in that way. As I mentioned earlier, Narcissus is written as aromantic and asexual, meaning that he feels no romantic or sexual interest in anyone else, something he makes clear time and again. But people still wouldn't stop trying to win him over, and he even mentions that a lot of people said that they wanted to be his friend but still fell in love with him, or even used that as an excuse to get close to him. A lifetime of being treated this way left Narcissus with a deeply rooted complex. He's fully incapable of believing that anyone approaches him without an ulterior motive, and that's why he filters every interaction through the lens of being courted. If that's the only way people will interact with you, it's the only way you'll be able to expect someone to. That's why he assumes Malinois is just pretending not to be into him, no matter how many times she says she isn't attracted to him or just wants his friendship. They're likely words he's heard over and over again from people who did want more than that, so he feels like he can't trust her when she says it. It's presented in a comedic slant because that's just the tone of the game, but he's hiding a very real pain and loneliness beneath it. Hell, the assumption of ulterior motive is likely why he reacts so poorly to Mel's repeated gifts of nectar. Not only does he have too many gifts already, and he's already asked her to stop, he associates them with someone trying to get something out of him. To Malinois, it's a gesture of appreciation and friendship, but to him it's a reminder of a lot of less well-intentioned people.
You really want to hear me say it again, huh? Alright, fine. How thoughtful. How thoughtful. That's my line. But you know what? I'm starting to think you might not be so thoughtful after all.
Narcissus, please. It's not my wish to offend. You don't have to take the nectar if you don't want it. I just noticed you don't seem to have much of it around. Have you even tried it?
What do you mean, tried it? Tried it how? All I've tried to do, Laurel, is look into these longing eyes in peace. Well, I'll accept your nectar just this once. For the last time, okay?
It takes some reading between the lines, but it's implied that this is why he turned so callous and self-absorbed. Because he was so accustomed to people feeling entitled to him due to his beauty, and never even trying to legitimately be his friend or even get to know him, it conditioned him to believe that nobody could or would approach him altruistically, which led to him taking refuge in the only person he could be sure actually gave a damn about his feelings: himself. His character arc in Hades 2 isn't just about taking an interest in others, it's also about learning to lower his guard and trust that Malinois really does just want to be his friend. Which is very hard because that kind of long-term psychological conditioning becomes very deeply ingrained. And even when he does eventually accept that she has no interest in pursuing him romantically, he actually starts to fear that she's only coming to see him because he gives her things. Because he still can't accept that someone else could like him for him. This leads to him refusing to give Malinois any gifts for a few visits because he wants to prove that she'll eventually stop if there's no extrinsic reward for seeing him. But she does come back. And in time, he actually does accept that she truly does care for him as a friend, which he appreciates so much he even begins to use her real name. But even before this, Narcissus is shown to actually care about other people, which is proven through his relationship with Echo. He talks at first about her as if she was just a toxic ex he had to cut out, but the moment he finds out she might actually be hurting, he expresses a great deal of worry.
Look, I can tell you're having trouble moving on. Maybe you ought to spend a little time down in the fields. Clear your head. Put the pieces of your heart back together and all that.
If you mean the morning fields, I don't think that's a healing place. The shades there wallow in self-pity and speechless despair. Although there is one who repeats whatever I say to her.
Repeats whatever you say to her. I knew a nymph like that one time. Nice girl. But she didn't get me. Only ever talked about herself. I had to cut her off.
So you do know Echo, the mountain nymph. She's languishing in the fields even now. Apparently because of you. I can hardly get through to her.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, tell her Narcissus really wants what's best for her. Unless that's me. Don't tell her that part, though.
I spoke to Echo about you. Said you didn't mean to hurt her, though perhaps I shouldn't have. She responded in her usual way, but I could tell something happened. You broke her heart.
She broke her own heart. They always fall for people who don't love them back. Anyway, I'm sure she'll find someone who thinks she's awesome. Plenty of fish. In the sea.
Yes, I've noticed. So, has anybody ever fallen out of love with you? Or do they all end up in the morning fields, pining for you for eternity?
All I know is no one's ever loved me as much as me. They're all too busy feeling sorry for themselves to really care, you know? You can't love someone if you can't love yourself. Hey, tell me something. Is Echo really not okay? I thought about the things you said, how she was all alone down in the fields. How could I hurt someone without even trying, you know?
Narcissus, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm impressed you've given any thought to someone else. As for Echo, she seems to be getting by. Is there something you'd like to say to her should I cross paths with her again?
Sure, go ahead and tell her that I hope she finds someone who loves her like I love me. But don't tell her I said it. She'd just get the wrong idea and her heart would break. Again.
The idea that he might have legitimately hurt her clearly distresses him, and the regret from this is implied to be what causes the pool to dirty up.
Look, I have done a lot of thinking, and I've started thinking maybe that these waters aren't gonna clear up after all. I even checked a different spot, and sure enough, same thing.
Forget the waters for a moment. Something's going on with you. Though whether you've done this to yourself or someone else has, I can't say. Have you been clinging to feelings of guilt, resentment, that sort of thing?
No way. I have never been better. Except when the waters were clear. I have never experienced feelings of guilt or resentment in my life. Unless you mean, well,
This is what drives the reconciliation between him and Echo. He actually goes to see her to talk things out and make her feel better, which is a lot more effort than you'd expect from any other depiction of him. And what's interesting is that after he does that and the pool still isn't clean, he expresses that he still feels better. He felt real guilt about hurting Echo, and by talking to her and establishing a friendship, he comes out of it a better and spiritually healthier person.
I talked to her again just like you said, but nothing's changed in here. Well, I feel kind of different anyway. I guess I'll have to settle for that.
He even experiences the monumental character growth of showing an interest in someone else for once, as seen when Nemesis visits him after the cleansing.
Tell me again I'm playing hard to get, and so help me. I will pluck your limbs from you one at a time like they're the petals of an itty-bitty flower. How's that sound?
Sounds bad, that's how. But also like something somebody playing hard to get would say. So I don't know. Now why don't you tell me some more about yourself?
What makes all of this work so well is that Malinois is willing to meet him on his level. Despite him being, and let's be honest about this, completely ridiculous at times, she never disrespects him or treats him as if he doesn't matter, nor does she ever imply that his feelings aren't significant. Because she's willing to take the time to really get to know him and be there for him, he's able to grow and become much happier. What makes Narcissus such good error ace representation is that his sexuality is never treated as a problem, nor his lack of romantic interest ever something to be fixed. His self-obsession isn't even directly connected to his orientation, it's the result of how other people treated him. Even in the original myth, Nemesis wasn't punishing him for not falling in love. She's not Aphrodite, she doesn't care about who is and isn't willing to bone down or skip through the fields hand in hand. What he was punished for was being callously self-centered and cruel to others, and that's what he was being punished for here too. A-spec people don't need to be fixed, nor is it their fault that other people fall for them. They just need to be respected and listened to when they tell you who and what they are. Narcissus only ever adopted his problematic attitude because nobody would extend him any understanding and just kept bulldozing over his lack of reciprocation and claims of disinterest. And Nemesis punished him because she doesn't care how he got to be callous, just that he was. It's honestly kind of tragic. What's interesting is that a couple of times, Narcissus will actually acknowledge that being so beautiful has made his life harder, even saying it might actually be a curse at some point. And yeah, it's initially comedically slanted, but it's also a startling display of vulnerability from a character that started out keeping everyone at arm's length. It's also a huge display of growth to go from this.
You're concerned that you're too winsome for your own good. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I don't find you particularly attractive.
Oh, I know you don't mean that. Though I appreciate you trying to comfort me, as a friend.
To openly discussing his feelings on relationships and romantic intent, it's actually really touching how he grows to trust and appreciate Malinois, and their discussions on the intersection of love and friendship help them find some fascinating common ground.
Maybe it is a curse, this thing I've got. The way that everybody falls for me the moment they lay eyes on me, I mean, I get it, but still, they don't even know me.
Mere infatuation in the guise of love. Though, to your point, your suitors might do well to interrogate their feelings once in a while, and respect your wish for privacy.
Well, the shades around here aren't so bad, I guess. They know where we stand. Back when I lost myself in these waters, they kept me company. Like you. I had plenty of suitors that said they wanted to be friends, but they were still in love with me. I had to cut them off. How come it's harder to be friends than be in love, you know?
Perhaps because when it comes to feelings of infatuation, it takes effort to banish them, not to have them. But cultivating friendships, that takes work.
I guess. I used to think I didn't need friends since I don't get lonely, but like, it's nice sometimes having somebody else to talk to about stuff. Like Echo, and like you. I keep on thinking, why is it so many friends can't just be friends? Like, what is wrong with that? They have to make it all romantic and then ruin everything.
Perhaps they're simply striving not to feel alone. We can't always control our feelings, or even tell what's causing them, so they get in the way of what's best for us.
Not for me, but probably for everybody else. Anyway, true friendship's just another type of love. You should be able to go through a rough patch every now and then.
There's another conversation they have that I sadly can't show you because I fucked up my recording process, where Malinaway actually admits that she doesn't fall in love like people expect and hasn't really felt romantic or sexual attraction before, which is actually what's led me to interpret her as being somewhere on the demi-spectrum, as she does form romantic and sexual relationships with 4 other characters, but only after growing so close for so long. As someone who's recently realised they might be demi-romantic, this is something I appreciate. It's a really touching scene, and Malinaway's interactions with him really do work to make him the deepest and most human interpretation of the character that I've ever seen. Narcissus is honestly such a good character, and I really appreciate that Supergiant not only put in the effort to make him so likable, but also took the effort to make some of the best and most thought-provoking error ace representation in a AAA game. He may be silly, self-obsessed, and a little stupid at times, but he's still a person, and one that I happen to like quite a bit. Thanks for watching.